Welcome everyone to another episode of Quartertones. Our special guest is Youmna Saba, who is a musician and a musicologist whose current research focuses on the musical dimensions of the Arabic language as a tool to generate new methods of working with electronics. She's released 4 albums to date and collaborated with musicians of different backgrounds from all over the world. She took part in the international programs and residencies from South Korea, as well as in Paris. Youmna holds a master's degree in musicology, focusing mainly on the parallels between classical Arabic music and Arabic visual arts. Youmna, welcome to Quartertones.
Thank you, Maki. Hi, everyone.
So we've been talking about this. We know each other, and we've been talking about doing something like this for quite some time. And the reason why we've talked about this is because the first time I saw you live, you blew me away. When somebody thinks like, oh, I'm going to go see some Hubut live, they think about the image maybe on the left. But what I saw was the image on the right, plus the image on the left, plus a laptop, plus a looper pedal, plus like texture and all this different stuff. So maybe give us a little background about how you started playing music and how you landed where you are now.
Yes, so I'm kind of self-taught. So I started basically around when I was 12, learning a bit of chords on the guitar, on the classical guitar, and printing the tabs. I had a full folder with the tabs printed, and so this was kind of how I started. I mean, I was always, I used to sing all the time, but that was on the side. And then I had many attempts at joining music schools, but I couldn't stay for long there. So they were very short attempts. Eventually, I had a very funny moment, actually. A friend of mine suggested that I play at an open mic night at an exhibition back in 2006. It was in June 2006, right before the war in July. And I went with my guitar, and I was expected to perform originals only, which I didn't have, obviously. And I learned that like a week before the event. So I had to quickly write some original songs, which I did. I wrote my first 2 original songs, and I performed them live.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that works. You should be thankful for that rule. Otherwise, you would have gotten up and like played Enter Sandman.
Exactly. So that was how I started, just throwing myself into this and doing my own music, which was very basic. It was based on what I knew, which was extremely limited. And then later in 2006, I met sound engineer and musician and producer Fadi Tabbal, who has TuneFork Studios in Beirut. And we became friends, and he suggested that I record my first songs to release them, which is the first album to the left, Manafsh al-Bayt. And we did that, and then the second one, this was 2008, released 2008, and the second one, Hal Bint Abela Tghani, 2011. And right before that, in 2010, I'm like, okay, if I want to continue making music, I cannot stay with the knowledge I have. I need to learn something. And I was very curious about Arabic music and the history of Arabic music, because it's something we are not very much exposed to, and there are so many historical layers that we're not aware of, and I wasn't aware of. So I joined the musicology program in Antonin University in Babda to do the musicology, Musicologie générale des traditions, which is like a general musicology of traditions, basically.
Mm-hmm. So who were you listening to at the time? I mean, what was your musical taste in the 2006 to 2011? Because for me, I'm like listening, I hear like Radiohead. That's who I listen to. That's who I hear.
Yeah, I will censor myself a bit here, but I was a
No judgment.
um, I was a big fan of Annie DiFranco, who's an activist,
Yeah,
singer, songwriter. I mean, I don't know
sure.
where she is now. I don't know what she's doing now. I stopped listening to her music a while ago, but I was a huge fan of her, and she really inspired me in just actually showing the process of her work, which she was doing, and you can see the evolution of her work from her first album till the album like years later. Yeah, so I was
Yeah,
listening to her. So it was very much based on vocals, guitars, and that's it, you know.
yeah. In the Arabic tradition, were there any sort of see? Because it's I can imagine a world in which you decided, I just want to make music like Tom York and folks like Annie DiFranco, and
Mhm.
who cares about any sort of Arabic themes or Arabic instrumentation? Sure, I'm playing oud, and sure, there's themes in my head that I can't get out of because there's the sort of audio landscape I was born and raised in, but that's not what I'm interested in doing. Were there any Arabic music inspiration that actually drew you back into exploring this tradition?
Yes, for sure. Like I grew up listening to Fairuz and Rahabne, Zaki Nasif, this kind of music. But actually, what first when I started writing my lyrics, I couldn't write in any other language than Arabic. Like I was just clumsy, you know, and I felt I could express myself best using Arabic. So then I started thinking more about the language and not just using it as a placeholder for lyrics, you know, and just think of its musicality basically. And also by pure chance, I was introduced to the music of Camilla Gibran, who's a Palestinian musician, composer, oud player. And first time I heard her music was maybe, I don't know, like 2005 or 6, and I didn't understand anything. And I'm like, what is this, you know? But it was so intriguing to me that I kept pushing and pushing, and I think deep down she really influenced me. And then she influenced me later on other levels, but she really it was a trigger to make me question what I was hearing, and why it sounded like this and not like something else, and what she was trying to do actually, because
Yeah.
I couldn't grasp what she was doing. Yeah.
Okay, so before we keep on going, I think usually I like to talk a little bit longer, but I think it would be worthwhile to play the first clip.
Sure.
And then we'll come back to talk a little bit about Arain Nujum and what you're working on right now. So let's go to the first clip, which is, I believe is Sobh, right?
Yes.
So tell us a little bit about Sobh before we play it.
This was a commission by the Relief Center for a conference last year, and
Yeah,
yeah, it was the conference title is Working Through Crisis, Innovations, Possibilities, and Limitations of Research in a Volatile Lebanon. So this was the bigger title, but then I was commissioned a piece of music, so also like and it was in March 2021, so we were in the middle of so many crises that we're still in. um, and yeah, writing a piece of music wasn't that obvious to me. The
yeah,
good thing that played in my favor was the lack of time, because I don't have the luxury to sit and think, and I just need to do something. And
yeah,
this is one of the tracks that I wrote really, really quickly, and some songs really come together in a magical way. I would say without much thinking, and this is one of them. Yeah.
cool. So for those who don't speak Arabic, al-subh means the morning, and for those who don't see the screen, the cover art is like a very grim, gloomy morning. And when people think about, I think that's the morning, right? That's a
No,
sunrise.
actually, that's the moon. That's the full moon.
Oh, interesting. So yeah, so tell us a little about the reason why it's called the subh and why which is usually like this hopeful thing, and the cover art is kind of gloomy.
I mean, it is a gloomy. I mean, yeah, we wait for the morning because it's a restart, yeah,
Yeah.
and but also it's a restart of something that is very like it's the track is a call for the morning, not really expressing the coming of the morning.
Okay, let's
So
listen to it.
yeah.
So this, and everyone can find this on SoundCloud, on Youmna's SoundCloud. So we're going to play this. It's 4 minutes long. Okay. So this is a super heavy piece. But before we get into the sort of meaning and story behind it, what are you playing exactly? What is the music that we're hearing?
Um, there's um, there's electronic sounds, synthesized sounds from my laptop. There's this wasn't play like it's a produced piece, so it's not
Yeah.
like so there's this. There's a bow oud. So I was using the violin bow on the oud, and then I played the oud as a bass, some bass lines on the oud, and the vocals.
Walk
And,
me through the, yeah, go
and
ahead.
some feedbacks, which
Yeah.
were generated from a pedal, basically.
Okay.
Mm.
Um, what is the writing process like? I feel like the writing and the performing must be, or the writing and the production must be so intertwined.
Yeah, I mean, in this one, I basically set the bass, if you want, the bass ambience of the,
Hmm.
and then I tried humming something over it, and I found myself like following because I played all the layers really haphazardly. There wasn't any fixed structure or measures or a time signature I was following. So
Yeah.
so after doing that, I tried to hum a melody on top of it, and this melody, which I found catchy, catchy between brackets, came up, but I didn't have the words yet, so I just listened to it constantly. I recorded it and listened to it constantly. Then I wrote the words, and that's it. And maybe at the end, I added the bass line because I felt it should happen.
Yeah. Do
But
you, I'm always curious about what it feels like to hear these types of things back. Like, how does it feel listening to this now? Do you feel like you're listening to yourself, or do you feel like you're listening to like a different place and time and different person?
I mean, this is not too far away in time, so I still relate to the person who wrote this. Yeah, but some other stuff that are really old feels a bit weird. Like I don't. I'm like,
Yeah.
and then I start analyzing, like, oh, there's a mistake here. There's a mistake here. And not a pleasant experience, but
Yeah. So I want to talk about that idea before we move on to the next one. I want to talk about this idea of mistakes. So we were talking about your earlier work, and then I went online to try to find these two early albums, and I could only find Nujum and Arbain. Walk us through why, what the difference is in terms of sound compared to some of your earlier stuff, and why those may or may not feel like mistakes, or evolutions, and
yeah.
how you sort of view your sort of arc as an artist.
Actually, it's just that with Njum was a turning point. It was a turning point also in my life. I wrote Njum when I was in South Korea in 2013, and I I had a very strong experience there. Like it really changed me as an experience. And there's an echo. Is it? Hey. So what I did from June onwards, I relate to the process I follow. Whereas the other two albums, I don't relate anymore to the process. Like these two albums, Njum and Arbain, I still see them within a certain linearity of the process. The other two, I feel they were maybe um, like a pilot for something, or like a pre-work, if you want.
Yeah. Okay. So so here it says, just real quick for interlude one, it says written and performed by Youmna Saba. How would you perform this now if you were to perform this live? Would it feel like a completely new thing?
I performed the vocal part on top of collaboration once, and it's
Yeah.
completely different. Um, but yeah, if I were to render this track live, I'm sure I'll have to think about it completely differently
Yeah.
because I cannot do all these layers at the same time, or like I, it is possible to do that, but I don't think the process would be interesting to just copy it as is and
Yeah.
think of a live version of it. Yeah.
because I like the performance I saw of yours, you were alone on stage and you had looper pedals and a bunch of different things, and you were sort of creating these soundscapes. Um, what is it like performing with other people on stage? Do you enjoy it? Does it pull different parts out of you? What is that like?
There are two different experiences. I mean, what I can say for sure is that the moment in the backstage with someone is much easier than alone by yourself.
Yeah.
So this is, and I mean, when you're alone, if something goes wrong, like I'm used to, if something goes wrong, I can work around it. If I'm with someone and something goes wrong, like there should be a very clear understanding between everyone that we're doing, like we're covering a certain malfunctioning somehow in the music. So, but there's also it's, I would say it's much more fun if I'm with people on stage. Like there's
For
always
sure.
an exchange that could be a lot of fun. But the solo one is very also very introspective as an experience. So they're completely different.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to interlude two. What is this interlude and why did you choose it?
Hubut is also another track that was also born like this because I'm a last minute person. But I also chose it because of the video that Remy Maqsoud did. Remy is a filmmaker, and she makes and she suggested to me, she really loved the track, and she suggested to me that to make a video for it. So I said yes, and do whatever you want basically. And this was her proposal. And Hubut was also it was based on a passage from La Chute by Camus, and that I reinterpreted it in my own words, if you want. And I remember I went to the studio not knowing exactly what I was doing, but then it worked also. Like some things aligned and it worked like that. But to say that this was part also of a project, I forgot the name of the project, but it was
Radio Mansion.
Radio Mansion, thank you, initiated by Brahim Naame, and it was a sound bank, and we had access to this sound bank, and we had to compose from these sounds that were recorded around Mansion by different artists, and I picked the one of footsteps going down the stairs. And I built the whole track on a very short sound sample, basically. And this is it, Hubut.
Okay, let's listen to it.
لنتأمل الآن لنتأمل الآن هذه القمم السامية هل تفهمين ما كنت أعني بالعبور إلى الأعالي أتنفس 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 في القمم الشامخة أتنفس أتنفس في القمم الشامخة أتنفس الأماكن الوحيدة حيث أتنفس أتنفس في السمو إلى الأعالي أتنفس في السمو إلى الأعالي أتنفس في السمو إلى الأعالي السمو السمو إلى الأعالي السمو السمو إلى الأعالي السمو السمو إلى الأعالي السمو إلى الأعالي السمو إلى الأعالي أتنفس في السمو إلى الأعالي
I'm going to stop it here. Um, so for those who can't see the screen, you can find that on YouTube. Um, how does that make you feel listening to this now? Because this was recorded maybe 4 years ago.
Yeah, yeah. It brings back a lot of memories actually. So it's a very
I saw you drifting,
yeah.
drifting a little bit. Where are you drifting to?
Back to 4 years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I want to talk about Beirut 4 years ago and where it is right now.
Mm.
So this was recorded, as you mentioned, with Fadi Tabbal at Tune Fork.
Mhm.
Um, Beirut has had a vibrant music scene and creative scene for a long, long, long time. Um, can you give us a sense of what that scene is like right now? It's been a very tumultuous 4 years. You know, is there something that has irreversibly changed for the music scene in the last couple of years?
Um, I mean, I'm in Paris now since 2 years ago. So
Yeah,
I left the Beirut scene physically, but whenever I go to Beirut, I feel there's a very strong a sense of what's the word? Um, like there's really like we're all helping each other somehow to make things happen.
yeah,
And I think musicians generally are have been very productive and working on so many projects. So it is as vibrant as it was, if not more.
yeah,
Of course, there's a sense of an ongoing gloom and doom all the time, but but yeah, I mean, everyone is still working, and I went last month to Beirut to actually record my latest album there.
at TuneWorks?
Yeah, at TuneFork. And
TuneForks, sorry.
yeah, I think it's to me it was very important to do it in Beirut, to do it at TuneFork, and keep the link because I'm part of the scene, and I never wanted to, like physically I'm not there, but there's yeah, I think there was a lot of things happening last month. For example, Irtijal
Yeah,
festival as well, despite everything, and I think few months earlier, Beirut and Beyond was happening as well.
yeah,
The place. So yeah, I mean, all the festivals, all the structures that work in music uh, are still working and working a lot, and it's amazing, I think. Yeah.
yeah. I want to talk a little bit about the track for a second. So for me, when I'm listening to it, I'm curious. Do you feel like the melody
Mm.
could be? Are they inextricably linked? The what you're singing to the sounds behind it? Could is it? Could you imagine interpolating that same voice vocal line onto another one of your tracks, or is it like no, this has to be with that?
Yeah, I think like all of the layers in this track and in every track, like I always think of everything as one whole, one narrative, and here clearly there's a very clear narrative of like going with the footsteps going down into this big bass sound, and with the vocals, and then going up. It's like you're reaching a certain space where the vocals and the guitar. It's a guitar here. It's not out. They go in the mix, and yeah, all the layers are necessary to this track.
Yeah,
And otherwise I wouldn't feel it's quite there yet. I
yeah,
always have to think also in a minimalistic way, like if a layer I can remove it, I would remove it. I would never keep it. So So yeah, I don't think, to answer you, I don't think they would fit on another.
Interesting. Cool. Do you, so I've a few times during this interview, I've asked you, but I've mentioned the term like soundscape and all this stuff. Do you kind of cringe when I say stuff like that? Are you like, no, this is a song. It's not a soundscape, Mikey. This is a song you're listening to.
No, because also the word song, I don't know what it means, like sound,
صح.
sound, piece, song, whatever, you know, composition, whatever you want to call it, you know, even like a moment, musical moment, or no, I don't cringe. Like uh, any word is fine, you know, as long as it's not world music and fusion. That's it. These are
Sure.
the two words I cringe about. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you get sort of frustrated if somebody says, uh, do you get frustrated if somebody says, Yumna, you make Arabic music? One, that's one question. And the second question is, do you get frustrated if somebody says, Yumna, you don't make Arabic music?
Mm. No, I mean you can ask both questions, but we can sit and discuss this forever. You know, it's
Yeah.
an ongoing question whether it is Arabic or not, or and what it means if it's Arabic. Is it enough to have the lyrics in Arabic, or is there something else that makes it closer to a certain Arabic musical system that existed at some point? You know, so it is and it's not. It's just.
And you don't care one way or another.
No, I think labeling. Actually, I don't like labeling music with identity labels, identity tags. I think it's very problematic, and it puts you in a category where it can be anything, you know, and it's
Yeah.
not specific and it's not accurate. So, and it's reductionist.
Mhm. Reductive. Yeah.
Reductive. It's
Yeah.
reductive, I would say, to the music and to the work itself and to the musician.
Have you worked with anyone who have you collaborated with any singers who sing in a different language with you?
I did, but yeah,
How did that go?
I mean it was okay, but it's something I just did it thinking of language as a sonic, like just as sounds, you know, as a sequence
Yeah.
of sounds, and not as and see how different languages can be put together. But actually, it's not something I appreciate or I enjoy doing aesthetically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like almost it's 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 painful for you to even swallow that idea. You're like, let's just stick with the language that for me sounds like my voice. Like, is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Anyway, if I sing now in English, I would sound completely different. I have a completely different voice
Yeah.
in other languages as well. So it's
Interesting.
also, I would say that the use of voice is very much linked to the language, and this is also part of my research of how language actually um, has a certain musicality and has a certain musical logic to it
Sure.
that guides you into composition or composing in a certain way.
Okay, let's do the third one.
Yeah.
So what is this and why did you choose it?
This is W Jazr. It's from the Njoom album, which was a turning point in my music making. This was I wrote this during my first month in South Korea, and then it evolved, and then I recorded it in Beirut with
Yeah.
Fadi as well. It was so I had this residency in South Korea, and they gave us a production grant. And the production grant, actually, I couldn't use it on anything else other than production. And I had my instrument, and that's it. I had my oud, my acoustic oud. So, and I needed to spend the grant. So I invested in in the loop pedal that I used for two projects and some other pedals. And I started experimenting with this, and it completely changed everything. Basically, it changed my ability to think as well. Like my thinking process in music making was completely different. Was changed by these tools as well. And I chose this track because it was the first one I wrote for this album, and this album is a very important one for me because it was a turning point. And I still,
Cool.
although it was from 2014, to me it's still relevant. You know, when I listen to it, I'm like, oh, okay, this wasn't.
For the non-Arabic speakers on the call, what does it mean?
W Jazr is high tides and low tides. And actually, in the island where I was in South Korea, this was like there was a lot of high tides and low tides happening during the day, and
Yeah,
I witnessed that for the first time, this bluntly, and
amazing.
yeah.
And real quick, who did the cover art? It's beautiful.
Yeah, the cover is by Joseph Kai, who's an illustrator.
Yeah,
He's also part of the collective Samandal. Shout
yeah,
out.
of course.
Yeah, so it's his wonderful work.
Cool. All right, let's listen to this.
خفف من كمالك وسكر بهالليل وسامرني بمسات أمالي واسرع فيه وعودك وسهر على راحة بالي وخيبات أمالي غيرك فيقك عروايات خيال غلف قلبه وما قال وقلبك بقياده دجال
Beautiful. Really, really, really amazing.
Thank you.
I guess I'll ask the same question as the earlier ones. Is that sort of transportive? Does that bring you back to a specific time and place?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Because
Yeah.
especially I haven't listened to this track in a while, so yeah. It's
Is so of the three that we've listened to, or of the last two that we just listened to, um, do you tend to perform these live?
No, now I'm working on something else that I perform. Usually, when I perform live, it's one full set.
Yeah.
So I had the Njoom set that I performed with Fadi mostly uh, from 2014 till maybe 2016. And then Arba'in, I performed it. This, I think, was the one that you saw, the solo one.
Yeah, I think so too.
Um, uh, yeah, this one I performed it solo, and then I wrote Jalila, which I haven't recorded, but I play solo as well, and a new one that I don't have a title for yet, but I performed it maybe twice or three times. But it's like a 30 or 45-minute long sequence of tracks. So I don't mix and match tracks. So I haven't performed these in a very long time.
Yeah. Have you ever thought about doing film scoring?
Yeah, yeah. I worked on some short films, and I would love to do that. Like if there's someone out there, no,
Yeah.
it's something I would love to do, like on a feature film, for example.
Yeah. Because your music is so cinematic. It's so visual. Um, Tell us a little bit about just three things real quick. So maybe we'll just talk about Cedars. Tell us a little bit about the fieldwork series Cedars.
So this album, it was initiated by Stuart Hyatt, who's a musician, sound artist based in the States, and he came to Beirut a few years ago, and I met him also by pure chance because he had this idea of recording music with cedars, like. The capturing the sounds of the forest, the Cedars forest, I think in the Shuf reserve, and making an album out of it. So then I met him just to put some oud lines on his sketches. I met
Yeah.
him at Tune Fork again, and when I told him about what I do, he's like, "Do you mind just singing a bit so I can hear your voice?" And I did, and then he was very interested in having me on the album. And then he asked me if I wrote poetry. I'm like, I write my texts
The
usually.
lyrics, yeah.
So he proposed this project to me to write a story that's linked to the cedar trees. So it was a series of, I think, 8 poems that I wrote based on a story that I imagined basically around the cedar tree. And it had, like, the music was. There were a lot of musicians, I cannot name them all now, but amongst them Fadi Tabbal was part of the project as well, and he was part of the main compositions basically of the project.
Okay,
So
amazing.
it's text
Let's
over, yeah.
let's do the quick Q&A. Then we have one question in the chat. And then if we still have time, I'll ask you some more. So what have you been listening to these days?
To a lot of things, but today I got actually from the public library Arvo Pärt. If you can see it.
Cool.
Arvo Pärt was an Estonian composer, and I'm a big fan of his work. So yeah, this is what
Okay.
I've been listening
Cool. Who would you love to shadow for a day, past or present?
to. Brigitte Fontaine, who's a French musician, songwriter, author as well. I would love to shadow her for a day now, just to see what she does.
What does her music sound like? I don't know. I'm not familiar with her.
I cannot describe her music because it's really specific and very. She's been active in the 80s, 90s. I think I would say even before 70s, but she's still active till now. She's in
Cool.
her 80s, I think. and she also released few books of her thoughts, basically, and they're just wonderful. So
Amazing.
I think you should discover her music as well.
Yeah, I will. What do people most misunderstand about your work?
I always get that it's long or not hyped up enough.
Where's the drop?
Where's the drop? Exactly. So yeah, I think it comes from a certain misunderstanding, which is yeah. I started trying to explain that.
Okay, you need خلاص, I'm going to make you a dubstep remix.
Yeah, maybe a remix of all my tracks.
A trap remix. Okay. And lastly, who from the past would be a dream collaborator for you?
Yeah, I wouldn't mind composing with Bach, actually. Just to share some ideas and thoughts.
Yeah, he had an idea or two.
Yeah.
So let's go from there. So we have one question from Yemen, I think is how you pronounce your name. And if you'd like to ask it, let me know. Otherwise, I can ask for you. Okay.
Yeah, hi.
Hey, go for it.
Yeah. Let me scroll back up because I forgot what I asked specifically. Yeah. As an artist, what was the turning point for you finding your sound and committing to showcasing that sound to the public? Did you find yourself constantly reinventing your identity or your branding when you first started? If you want me to explain what I mean, just yeah, if you want me to clarify, just let me know.
I think it's clear. I hope I answer you. The turning point was with Njum, the album. Actually, I don't know what was the trigger, but I think it was just being alone and not seeing and interacting with anyone for a very long time that actually made me reach something very internal, and which actually changed my approach of making music. And I don't think it's about mostly an identity or branding. It's just an approach that you keep seeing how it manifests itself constantly through different works and aesthetics. Of course, there's a continuous reinventing, and it never stops, as I also asked some older musicians, and they assured that it never stops. You keep reinventing yourself on and on and on. And yeah, I don't think much in identity or branding. It's just a certain sound that I make, whether it's I feel it's true to myself or not. If it's true, I let it out. If it's not, I just put it on the side and not visit it anymore. Voila.
Amazing. Youmna, I'm going to ask you one final question. Do you feel like the 12-year-old Youmna would have loved the music that the 2022 version of you is making?
I mean, I enjoy it now, so I'm sure she would. To a certain extent, she might feel it's a bit long maybe to get into it, but I'm sure she would have enjoyed it, yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, what are you working on right now? What can we expect from you soon?
I recorded a 30-minute project for vocals, oud, and electronics, and it's based on my research that I've been doing for the past 2 years and a half. And I hope it comes out by the end of the year, this year.
Okay, amazing. So people can find your work at youmnasaba.com and on Bandcamp and SoundCloud and all over the internet. Youmna, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you.
I'm really excited. I'm a big fan of your work, and so I was excited to explore it with you.
Thank you so much. And thanks everyone for attending.
Okay, everyone, this is going to go up on YouTube and on our podcast tomorrow. And so be sure to share with friends who may have missed today's talk, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. All right, we'll be back next week with a bunch more interviews, so stay tuned.